Many men arrive at a realization quietly. It's not a single moment, but over years. Approval doesn't always give air. Sometimes it tightens around the chest. Sometimes it feels like encouragement and more like something you have to earn just to breathe. If that realization has found you, this message is not here to push you forward. It's not here to wake you up or demand anything from you. It's meant to meet you exactly where you are. Every man who lives it remembers it, the moment when help didn't come. Not as a story he tells, but as a feeling that never quite left his body. You remember when you waited, you watched the doorway, you listened for footsteps, and you held yourself still as if that might make someone arrive faster. And no one showed up. Not your father, not the coach who talked about discipline but missed the signs that you gave, not the teacher who said he cared but kept his distance, and ultimately not the mother who promised protection but couldn't deliver it when it mattered most. There's a quiet, final moment when a boy, a little guy, understands without words, a moment when hope kind of just drains away, not with anger, but with a resignation. It doesn't arrive with lots of drama. It doesn't shatter anything loudly. It just settles in like weight. From that moment forward, he builds his life around playing it safe, around not reaching or emotionally reaching, not asking, around not expecting. That is when that emotional armor goes on. Not because he feels strong, not because he feels brave, but because disappointment has become dangerous. You fell. No one saw. No one came. So you stood back up alone, without witness, without reassurance, without anyone to say, oh, that should have not happened to you. You learned how to reset yourself in silence, how to swallow what hurt, and how to keep moving without repair. And something inside of you took note. It didn't break. You took note. Early on, you learned a rule, and that rule was never spoken out loud. If no one is coming, you had better figure it out yourself. So you stopped crying where others could see, stopped asking questions that slowed people down, and stopped waiting for the support you saw other kids get. You learned how to read the room, how to anticipate needs, how to make yourself useful enough to justify your presence. You learned how to stay busy so no one would look too closely. Responsibility became your identity. Competence became your currency, and silence became your safety. You learned that calm was rewarded, that independence was admired, that needing less made life easier for everyone else. You were praised for being steady, rock solid, for being mature, for not causing trouble. No one asked what you were carrying. No one asked why you never asked. And over time, you stopped wondering if anyone ever would. And here's the kicker. Just because no one came does not mean you didn't need them. The boy inside you remembers. He remembers the shape of the room when it felt daunting, too large, the sound of waiting, the silence that stretched longer than it should have. He remembers realizing that his fear had nowhere just to land. And when you arrived, he did what little boys do when there is no safety. He disappeared, not physically, but emotionally. He folded himself smaller and smaller. He hid his needs behind usefulness. He learned how to be low maintenance. He became dependable, capable, the one people could count on. Inside, though, there was no map. No one showed you how to feel pain without losing yourself, how to ask for support without risking humiliation. So, you learned to pretend nothing hurt. You learned that being needed felt safer than being seen for who you really are. Because if you were useful, you would not be abandoned. Because if others leaned on you, you would not be dropped. You see it now in how difficult it is to admit you are struggling, even to yourself. In how quickly you retreat when something inside feels kind of exposed. In the way your body just tightens up when someone asks, "Hey, are you okay?" And they actually mean it. Because no one came way back when. Part of you learned not to trust the moment, even when help appears. Even when support is offered, you hesitate. You weigh the cost. You wonder, how long will this last? You prepare for disappointment before it happens. So you test people, not with words, but with your absence. And often, they don't notice. I don't mean absence as leaving the room, but absence as in emotionally retracting. Not because you're unimportant, and it's not because you are physically invisible. And you may not want to hear this, but because you became very good at surviving without leaving a trace. Here is what matters. You didn't fail. You were a boy who simply needed guidance, and it was not there. That absence shaped you, but it did not define your worth. What you are facing now is not weakness. It's a long echo chamber of having to become self-contained before you are ready. But you are not that boy anymore. You're a man who has endured, and endurance always leaves marks. Healing does not mean going back and changing what happened. It does not mean forcing some kind of openness or tearing down your defenses overnight. It means allowing yourself to remain present when you are seen, without vanishing, without performing, without disappearance into that masculine, supposedly masculine strength. Slowly, quietly, at your own pace. You are still standing, and that is not a slogan. It's simply true. And you do not have to disappear to stay safe anymore. There are men who recognize this silence, who understand what it means to grow up without anyone or the support you needed, and they are arriving to support you along the way. Men who reached the same empty place and decided not to leave themselves behind. And you are not behind. You are not broken. You are a man who learned to survive before he even learned what he was allowed to receive. Still standing, and slowly, without force, learning that standing does not have to mean standing alone.